Welcome back to the groundwork. This time I'm going to be turning all of this stuff into a rear tyre carrier bar for my mate Will's GQ Patrol over there. I want to make sure that I have really solid mounting points that pick up on two planes of the chassis to combat any flexing and rotation from the considerable weight of a carrier bar. The great thing about the Patrol is that they come with 8 captive threads in the chassis that are perfect for doing this. I'm getting started with these 8mm plates into the factory bumper mounts that are M14, and they're way overkill for a factory bumper, but perfect for mounting a carrier bar. So yeah, cheers Nissan. Okay, so for the pivot point, I'm using stub axles and flangeless hubs. They really are the best way of doing it. Better than any bolt or bronze bushing sort of scenario. Those ways are just cheesy. This you get heavy duty and greasable bearing and everything. And the way that we're doing it here, I'll be able to put a hole in the top and the bottom and just make it a little bit longer so it just pokes out the bottom a little bit. I'll be able to weld it top and bottom so that'll be beefy as. Before we get to that, we've got to get the position. Now, the position is determined by a few things, but the most important thing is that we want to try and get, and this does depend on the vehicle you're doing it for, but we want to try and get full range of motion of the door and not having that hub interfere with that. So if I open the door all the way up, give myself about a 10mm gap to the door, I know that's a good position to put the hub in. Mounting the stub axles is one of those make or break steps for this project. I need to make sure they are well supported as possible, and welding them in the top and bottom of the bar is definitely achieving that. For reasons I'll talk about later in the video, making sure the spindles are sitting plumb to the top face of the bar is crucial. So I'm just using some laser cut parts from off my shelf to space the hub up the required amount, and this also plumbs the hub to the top face of the bar. These tail lights aren't cheap, so I want to make sure they are well protected from damage, so I'm going to recess them into the bar. Well, now I've got those pockets cut out, just got to make up an insert out of 3mm steel. It'll be something for the light to mount to, and it'll finish it off nice and neatly once we've welded it in. Right, well I've got my light pockets made, so that they'll sit inside and just be welded and cleaned up and look all seamless in the bar. We've got to get our wiring through for the light. And it's not just a case of punching a hole in the back of this and punching a hole in the back of the bar, because all that's going to do is allow water to actually get inside the bar. We'll have ourselves an involuntary rusty water tank, and we don't want that. So, in order to seal it all up, what we're going to do is put a 38mm 1.5" hole in this guy here, weld a bit of 38mm tube onto there, hole on the back of the bar, pass it all the way through, fully weld it, and that way it's going to be nice and sealed. We're going to have a nice hole to get our wiring and plug through. Ooh, camera angles. Righto, well those light pockets look really good. So now I'm going to move on to the next job, which is setting up the swing away arms and the locks themselves. And what we're using for the arms are 75 by 50 by 3mm wall RHS. That's kind of the minimum size that you want to use if you want to sort of keep it strong and stiff and everything. And the locks themselves, nice heavy duty over center weld on latch. That's more than up to the task. So get cracking on that. Just as important as having the spindles mounted correctly is having the swing arms mounted true to the bar and perfectly lined up with each other. So I'm going to clamp it all together with a straight edge and to the bar itself to hold them in position while welding. Well, that's the working parts of the bar. Nothing more to do on the bench now. Need to stick it to the car so we can start getting the tire and everything organized and getting a dual jerry can and a shelf like above it on here. Now, why is that rattling? Because, see how this is, that hangs down like that? But what I do is actually behind there, I'll put a rubber stopper bolted to the bar. So that way we don't have metal on metal contact and we've got like a nice soft stop. So yeah, what do you guys reckon? So you know how when I was setting up the spindles and I was like talking about why they've got to be like dead straight up and like I had these two arms like clamped together to keep them together? This is the reason why. When you open them up, they swing true and they're parallel to each other. Not all like spread eagled like an OnlyFans girl. Burning. It's critical that the weight of the bar is supported by chassis mounts in opposing planes. So I'm also using the factory toe point in the chassis to attach a third mount to the bar. That'll add up to 8 mounting bolts in total. Okay, well the bar's taken shape now. I'm going to move on to the next accessory, which is going on the passenger side arm, which is a dual jerry can and a chainsaw shelf. So the start off with the jerry can holder. That's actually going to be folded up out of some 1.6 zinc sheet that I've got here. So I'm going to mark this out, take it over to where my press brake is, fold that up, and then we'll start nutting out the chainsaw shelf. Alright, so next job is a shelf that sits above the jerry can holders for putting a chainsaw on. And Will asked for one and I didn't really research it. I was just like, yeah man, whatevs. And then when I did research it, I realised these things have got a lot of lashing points in them, like 24 lashing points. And I was like, ugh, if I had researched it, I would have just drawn it out and got a laser cut, because then it'd be like a lot quicker. So I was like, oh, it's alright, I'll just do it by hand, drill a bunch of holes and slot them and all the rest of it. So I've drawn it out on the piece of steel, faced myself with the prospect of drilling 48 16mm holes, and realised that that is a terrible way to spend my time. But I still want to get the car back to Will on time, so I won't have time for laser cutting and everything, but I'm going to look at it as an opportunity to make this thing better. I'll make this so it bolts on. Well, not this, because I'm not going to use this. I'm going to get a laser cut by laser cutters. But what I'll do is, like I said, make it so it bolts on. But the good thing about that is that I can actually get this polyurea coated, a lot more hardware and coating, whereas the rest of the bar is going to be powder coated. Yeah, so there'll be a little bit of delay in delivering the shelf to him, but he'll be able to get the car back and I'll just drop the shelf off to him in a week's time after that. So yeah, organising fail. This would be a good time to have one of those plasma robots. Gotta get me one of those. The mounts for the chainsaw shelf are just some 4mm plate drilled and folded up in a mirror image and attached to the back side of the jerry can mount. Righto, well it's time to add some style into this agricultural looking bar. Nothing too crazy, there's no Star Destroyer spec angles here and angles there sort of deal on this bar. The style of this is more of a classic sort of style, so just going to make up some nice little discrete wings that will follow the prevailing body line of the quarter panel here, and yeah, have it tie in nicely. So just got some 3mm plate and that's what I'll be making it out of. That's actually a pretty good looking little wing, isn't it? I dig it. I thought this thing was going to be way more agricultural than it's actually shaping up, so that's a good thing. Just can't help but making things stylish. Isn't that right, Gemma? What about you, Henry? What are you doing? Come here. Don't knock over the tripod, dummy. Oh, that fucking tail. Alright, piss off, jerks. We're doing YouTube. Go away. Now that all the components of the bar are in place, I can remove it and finish it all out on the bench. This is time to add in all the gussets, drill all the holes and finish weld and clean the whole job. Making sure every imperfection is corrected or removed so that once the bar is coated, we have a quality finished bit of bar work. So I'm finishing out the bar, the corners and stuff, and at first I thought I didn't mind just leaving it square because I really didn't want to just sort of lop the corner off. It just didn't suit the style I was sort of going for with this thing, but the square edge was just horrible as well. So what I did was cut a quarter of a bit of 32 NB pipe. I'm going to weld that in there and finish it off all nicely and everything like that, to give us a nice subtle radius edge.